Hello, this is the Break It Down Brown Show, and I'm your host, JaMarr Brown. And I want to break down today just how awesome our young people are. As a reminder, this is the show where we take everyday issues and challenges and life situations and we break them down. And the whole point of the show is not to change your opinion, rather to change your perspective. And what I'd like to do is to provide some perspective about just how awesome and amazing our young people are today. I was asked to speak at a conference this past weekend for about 20 junior colleges in the Southern California area. And in attendance were all the administrators and faculty, but more importantly, there were hundreds of students that are leaders on their campus in terms of student government, clubs and organizations, and they're the ones on campus that really want to make a difference and become future leaders of the world. And so the talk that I put together was called Your Future Leadership Starts Now. And it was actually based on a talk that I did last year for a college speaking tour that I did called Your Future Starts Now. And the whole premise of that talk is to help these young people understand what they need to know today in order to avoid being the individuals that get older in life and are filled with regret and pain because they feel that they could have lived their life differently. And they're the ones that say, if I only knew then what I know now. Well, my whole perspective is, why don't we tell the young people what they need to know now in order to lead the lives that they were meant to live on this earth? So that was a talk I gave last year. So I tweaked that talk for the conference this past weekend, and I changed it to Your Future Leadership Starts Now. And the whole point of that talk was to help them understand how they need to develop themselves as leaders today in order to become the leaders that have the potential that they are capable of in the future. And the students had a choice of attending, one of like 8 different sessions. And the session that I had, I wasn't sure how many students were going to show up because it was all optional. And the room that I had held about 50 students. Well, I did back-to-back sessions, and the first session was jammed to capacity. There were about 70 students in the room, which please don't tell the fire marshal, because I'm sure it was a fire hazard. But literally, these students were sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall because there were just no seats. And I'm not going to get into the entire presentation because you can, go to JaMarRBrown.com and learn more about it. But the whole point is, I was just so overwhelmed with how passionate and how engaged and how inspired and how motivated these students were to soak up everything that I said so that they can prepare themselves to be the leaders of the future. And sometimes our young people get a bad rap for, always being on their cell phones or not being serious or not being focused and not wanting to work hard. And I want to dispel that myth. Our young people today are incredibly motivated and inspired to be future leaders. They just need us as older people that have lived a little bit to reach down and help them understand some perspectives about how do they do that? What do they need to know? What can they learn? How can they help themselves grow right here and right now in order to reach their potential? And it's unfortunate that oftentimes those types of discussions aren't had with our young people. We don't talk about the importance of living their purpose, or living their dreams, our leadership skills, our communication skills, and literally all the things they need to know to truly be successful. And I was just so overwhelmed. And unfortunately, I didn't record the session, which I'm still kicking myself over. But quite honestly, you really can't record the type of energy and emotion that was in the room. There's no way to capture it. You had to experience it. And, on one other note, I wrote a book called What's Your Sales Story, and I've gotten some tremendous feedback about the book because it talks about my experience going from just graduating college to being, thinking I was God's gift to sales and almost getting fired for poor sales performance after the first couple of years, and then becoming a salesperson of the year. And I had one person recently that told me, oh, JaMarr, he read my book and he said, oh, JaMarr, the concepts in the book are great, but you use the word I too much. You talk about yourself too much. And I said, oh, that's kind of odd because the book is essentially an autobiography, but that's a whole other point. And I almost sort of questioned myself about doing that. But literally after this weekend, I have a completely different perspective on it because I literally told the students my story. I didn't look at a John Maxwell book or the 10 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders and give them a whole bunch of words from other people and a whole bunch of things and statements and taglines about leadership. I told them my story. I told them, about the time I was, Black Student Union president at Whittier College, or student body president, and how that was the worst time in my life because I didn't understand leadership. I didn't understand politics. I didn't understand how to communicate effectively with other people. And so I struggled with that. And guess what? The reason why they loved my presentation was because they said I was real, because they wanted to hear someone that can tell them their experience that they went through because they're dealing with the exact same thing. And so if you have a story, if you have an experience like we all do, share it with the young people of today. Help them understand what the mistakes that you made and what would you do differently. Help them understand what they need to know now in order to be successful in the future. These kids are absolutely amazing. They want the information. They want to do well in life. And we have to start really sharing with them what they need to know. And so I wanted to break that down a little bit. The second session I had, we had about 70 people as well, and the students didn't want to leave. I went about 30 minutes over both times, and we had to get kicked out of the room. And I had students giving me a hug and telling me how life-changing, the presentation was, and how great my story was, and how much it helped them. And they were taking pictures with me, and they've sent me emails and Twitter feeds and everything like that since the meeting. But you know what? They gave me 10 times more than I gave them. I mean, I am so inspired. I think about my 12-year-old daughter and her life and what she's going to go through. And I just think to myself, if she could end up like these students with the same drive and ambition and the same compassion for wanting to make a difference in the world, then our world will be in a great place with these young people leading the way. So I wanted to break that down, and look forward to reconnecting with each one of you during the next Break It Down Brown. Take care.